This is big. This is real big. Like I said, there is nothing bigger. You will not hear a message larger in the next 1,000 years than what I'm talking about. There literally is a plan. There's a blueprint. Hi, welcome again to this message series entitled The Body. Today we're going to be at the end of section 2 and we're leading into section 3. Section 3 is pretty exciting. Section 3 is some pretty big things that we're going to be saying there, but today we're going to be talking about government, which actually leads into it. You know, what is the government of the future? How were we meant to be governed? Whether we like it or not, we are headed towards some type of world government, some type of large government oversight system that hopefully brings unity to this earth. But I believe it's going to be, in the beginning, more of a controlled unity rather than a voluntary unity. And so let me explain some things here. Again, this series is about purpose, placement, and peace. And for there to be peace, there has to be some type of order. There has to be some type of management. And so today we're going to look at government. And why is this important to talk about? Well, it's because it's where we're headed. And then we're also going to compare the two shapes, where we're headed, I believe, and then where we are now. Where the revolution will take us, this revolutionary concept, and where we are today. And so I'm in no way a poli-science major or person, but just a general overview of the types of government that are going to be vying for position. I just want to do a quick overview. How are we meant to be governed? What does the future look like? Who's going to vie? What ideological concepts are going to win out in the long run? Because we're headed there fast. We're headed there fast. And so if you look up the word government in the dictionary, you'll find that it's sort of a spectrum of meanings. And it goes from one end, which is very neutral. It basically means to manage or to administrate. Now, not too many people have a problem with that. We understand that. We understand a well-managed business is a good thing. A well-managed household, unmanaged children in the mall are not fun. So we understand that order is not bad. But if you look up the definition, it means to manage or administrate or to control. So here you see the spectrum of the definition. Well, you also see that in the different types of ideological concepts of governing that various countries across the world are using right now. And so, we can call this center, all right? Well, on the very far left over here, but you can almost call it far right as well, would be things like fascism, okay, and communism. You have that way over here. One's they call far right, one's far left. They're really about the same. It's basically heavy control by a small group of individuals, a very small ideological group, and it's heavy control. So from heavy control to way over here, you have, say, a democracy. All right? Now, but there are this group of people that are so fed up with control that they've actually believe that that anarchy without government would be something. And I understand that if you've been under control or understand the death, the killing that happens under these type of governments, you will go into another ditch. You will say, hey, as far away from that as possible. But the problem is, if you take anarchy to its fullest level, nobody in control, somebody does end up in control. It's the control of one, it's the control of one, and the strongest survive. And eventually a government does form based out of strength and very primitive concepts. So you really can't have an anarchy. You cannot have non-government. It'll be you governing. It'll be government by force. But anyway, so in this concept of government, you see this spectrum. To the left of democracy, because even in the United States, we don't have a democracy. We have a republic, okay? A republic is essentially a representative government. And so the people elect their representatives, and the representatives then vote on all the issues, because we don't have time for it. So again, this is not new to hardly any of you, all right? But then if you take the whole section, okay, well, what about oligarchies? What about plutocracies? What about these type of things that are run by money? And what about our government, which is capitalism? These things that almost like are an overlay of the situation. Well, it means those with a capital rule. And so you have this sort of conglomerate here in the United States. So the United States is over here. And then different types of governments. You even have what they call theocracies, and they're more over here, pretty heavy-handed controls. Why a lot of people fear it here in the United States, some type of theocracy. But it's not, actually like in Iran and those places, it's not a theocracy. Those are actually religiocracies and ecclesiocracies. It's a church rule. It's not actually God ruling, they're religions. And if you really look into what most people are afraid of, they're actually afraid of these church governments, because they can be very, very authoritative and very, very unforgiving. And so that's why we have a problem with this type of stuff, Sharia stuff. And that's why here in the United States, we're afraid of Christians taking over, because they have it. Most of Christianity today is a religion, and we'll get into that later. And so you have this big spectrum across the board, where you got socialism, over here, and so you got a lot of Europe is in this realm right here. You've got you have a few countries still, Australia, New Zealand, us, a few people over here, and then there's a lot of in between, which is just they're actually, most governments right now are sliding in this direction. They're moving in this direction, and it is a natural direction. In the United States, when we were first founded, we were way over here. A very simple constitution, very simple form of government, because the people came over here. They wanted freedom. So they were unified in a basic, freedom of religion type of, battle cry. And so when they came over here, they were unified already. And so, to pay that price to come over to the United States, it had a self-weeding effect in it already. And so our government was made very simple. So a lot of people, if you ask them today, they think we're pretty right of center. They think we're right here. Well, they say on a scale from 1 to 10, we're sort of, a 10 being here and a 1 being here. We're like a 6 or 7. Well, unfortunately, that is changing and changing very, very fast. It's been noted that right now, today, actually a couple years ago, 40% of our government, 40% of the population, of our country is either in the government or solely dependent upon the government, either for, their entitlements, their retirement, or they're dependent upon our military, government contractors, So all of these people are dependent upon our government. Well, there's a the government is actually growing. And they say within a couple years it'll be 50%. Well, we're actually probably there already, because even though you may think we're over here, there's this whole underlying thing that has been occurring. It's been the growth of our legal system. If you just take a look at your local phone book, look in the yellow pages, and look at the size of the group that is under attorneys. Where does that money come from? How do those people get employed? All attorneys do are they decipher and enforce the law, and they represent the law. And so you could actually say that's a whole nother level under government, law. You see, the more time goes on, more and more laws are added, and they just grow exponentially. Our latest healthcare law is thousands of pages. Our IRS code is thousands, and even the IRS agents don't know it. Our senators and our Congress people don't know what's in the healthcare law, and that's just a new one. Let alone all the books, like in the ads for the attorneys. Look at all the books behind them. That's just a fragment. We're talking millions of laws. And so, though we have a simple constitution, it looks very simple. Looks like that we're just a green bunch of people. No, because of the laws, oh my gosh, we today are actually left of center, quite a bit left of center, because of all the laws that are needed to control. See, laws control. We try to control. And so, as you can see, as time goes on, most governments move from right to left. And the reason being is like in our government, it's a representative government. Well, the government represents the people. And the problem is we have an immoral people. Even the founders of our Constitution of this country said that it will not, our country, this U.S. experiment, will not work with an immoral people. It relies on immoral people. It will absolutely fail with an immoral people. And so, as long as it's moral, you can be managed and administrated. But if you're immoral, it goes this way. And so our representative government actually just represents the people. So all this bickering about who's on top, it's not, it doesn't really matter. It's going to represent. It's going to represent. We need more control, and what's happening is more and more people are getting on the government teat. They're saying more entitlements. And so what happens is you end up moving this way because the people are choosing. The people are choosing to choose, to be taken care of. And so you can blame it on the government all you want, but it's the people that create this. And eventually what happens, it gets so out of control that we need to bring this in line. And so what happens, we clean it up and we all elect for more control. Well, so what is governing this? What is governing this? Well, the people. Let's say there's this businessman and he wanted to start a business and he wanted to be the best one in town. He's very ideological and so he said, I'm going to be a manager. I'm not going to be like that controlling boss I had. He was just controlling. We had so many do's, don'ts, can'ts, would, and shouldn'ts. I'm going to have something very free, okay? Very trusting. And so he hires some employees, and then he ends up having some customers. Well, as time goes on, one of his employees maybe steals something, or is late for work, or cheats on his time card. And so he has to put in a few rules. And so he goes, well, this is just the territory. So he puts a few rules in, or laws. And so as time goes on, he has to oversee the employees more and more. So they scoot over here, they scoot over here. And so he has to put on more and more rules. And then maybe an employee starts stealing something. So he has to put in a policy of how much time you can have off or how much of the food, in the break room you can take. And then a customer comes in and maybe he steals or accidentally slips and falls and gets sued. And so he wises up and puts security cameras in. And then one night he gets broken into, and so he puts up burglar bars. and security systems. And so what happens is slowly he goes from this ideological concept to more of a policeman. He has to rule it. He's ruling with an iron fist. And gone are the days when he thought he could just trust people. He had to match it. He had to match what was going on or he'd be out of business. Well, he moves more to a police. Well, the same thing with people. We move towards a police state. So, I say all this to say, where are we headed? These are our choices. This is the scope of man. And because man needs to be moral for this to occur, then if he's not, it will move this direction. So where do I see the world heading to? Where do I see this end of the world cataclysmic thing occurring that everybody's afraid of, this one world government? Well, I believe if you take the world, all of these governments, different types of governments all over the world, are all going to filter. I don't care if it's a theocracy or any of those, they're all going to filter into some type of heavy-handed control. It will happen it'll happen in increments, and it will be a lot of fighting, but it will be where things have to go. They will all be headed towards more and more control. Because when more and more tragedies happen, more and more threats to our security, our even existence happens, governments, UN, people will give up some of their liberties for, actually the ability to survive. They will trade human existence. They'll say, we'll take human existence and let that occur. And so all these type of governments will move into a controlling situation, even the free ones. They'll say, hey, we can't even be here, so we might as well. And it will take over. And so there will be a controlling government, controlled by a group of people. Now, who will control it? Will it be money? Will it be like our dollar fails? Maybe the yuan will take over, or maybe China because of will it be a military power? What will it be? Will it be military? Will it be a monetary strength? Will it just be basic size? Or will it be a number of chess moves that put a certain country in place that allowed them to be the ones to rule? Chances are it will probably be a monetary thing. Whoever has the dollar at the end, whoever has the world monetary system in their pocket will be the one ruling. The United States has had it up till now, but it looks like we're about to lose that. And so there will be a philosophy. It might be this giant group of rich people that take all the richest people in the world and put them together. I still think it's going to be the one who controls the quote, new Fed. So anyway, where is this heading? This seems like all bad news. Well, it's actually not. I'm saying this because, over time, we here in the United States have given up our rights and liberties over time to the point where control is happening rather quick. And being the big government, the last remaining, the military of hope, of free enterprise, we're giving it up real fast. And so when we hit that tipping point where it is left of center, the thing tips pretty quickly and happens real fast. So when the world gets into a full governmental state, I believe that the thing that we've been talking about here will start to occur. And it's occurring even now. So, just as Israel, when over a few hundred years, they eventually got taken over and they lost their country. But it was under persecution that they grew the most. Same with the churches in China and different, under persecution they grow the most. Because some of the things that they were holding on to disappeared. Their crutches disappeared. And so the real thing had to occur. And so what happens, out of the ashes, I believe, will form a body, and it will slowly occur. And so how will that occur? Well, a number of years ago, actually around 20 years ago, I had a dream, and it was very, very vivid, and it really stood out to me, and I was like, well, what was it about? And then eventually, a few years later, I began to understand what that whole dream was about. Well, here was the dream. There was this crib, and it was just a regular sized crib, maybe a little larger than regular, but in the crib was not a baby or anything like that. It's a little gross, but it was all these body parts. There was like a foot was over here, all right? And then some eyeballs were over, say, over in this corner here. Some eyeballs were over in the corner. And over here was a brain just kind of thumping away over here. And over here was a hand. But some of these parts were actually assembled, but not assembled correctly. Like the hand was actually connected to, say, a knee, and the foot was connected to an elbow. And it was really weird. Like the brain had like this hair on it. It was getting under this hair, and then it also a liver was on top of it, and a kidney was on. It was doing like the sand crab motion, trying to get under because it didn't like being exposed. And so it was going. It was really gross. There was blood everywhere. And nothing was moving very fast. Nothing was, nothing had its normal function. But all these parts were scattered all over. These internal organs were over here and just thumping away, and everything was barely alive, barely. Well, this went on for some time, but then somehow there began to be this signal that started to occur, and it hit these parts. And the parts started picking up on it. They started recognizing the signal, almost like your phone starts picking up a few bars, you see? And what happened was, the first thing that began to occur was there was a separation. Parts started like jiggling, and then they separated. The foot and the elbow separated, and they went different directions. And the hand and the knee went different directions. And these organs went, this isn't right, and they started moving away from the assembly that they had. And that was the first thing. It was like they all broke up into individual pieces first. But secondly, they started to move. And so, just as like in the bottom of the crib, if you looked at it, like a part over here would start moving this direction. Slowly, gingerly, fearfully. And a part over here started moving in this direction. A part over here started moving in this direction. A part over here started moving in this direction. They just started moving. And they didn't know why. It was a very lonely feeling. They felt lost. They just started, moving. But then the third part started to occur. They started to assemble. And what happened is like when the eyeballs, they started moving, and they got over, and the brain moved over a little halfway, and so the brain and the eyeballs were sort of close together. And then the mouth and the lips and the nose moved, and they were moving in that same direction. So these groups moved, and they ended up over in this corner here. And then there started to be a sound. And then because there was a sound, the brain started getting excited. And it says, well, I can handle that sound. And the eyes started saying something. And so now the sounds became less gibberish and became more like words. And so what happened was this head started forming and started barking signals. And the body started to assemble even faster. It actually became almost exponential. It was an exponential curve. And it started happening real fast. And this body started forming. The parts are coming together in the crib. Kind of similar to that movie Terminator, where that the bad guy was this molten metal, and then all the little drips and droplets and puddles started coming together, and then the guy came back together. Well, that's what was happening here. And then And then it started moving quite a bit, and then eventually it got up and it stepped out of the crib. It stepped out and walked away. And as it was walking away, it was just getting in shape. It was like, getting off the dust, and it started getting happy. It was like happy you could tell it was almost skipping right then. And then I woke up. Well, I believe that's what's happening right now. I believe that there is a body of people, a signal that people are picking up. As we said in chapter 1, this new internet, this spirit is happening. And people are starting now to separate, to disassemble. You see it in churches. They're leaving left and right. It's a giant alumni, our church systems now. Our governments, our people are questioning things they've never questioned before. They're saying, well, wait a minute, there's a lot of separation occurring. But then you think about it, Jesus said, I didn't come to peace, I came to separate. I call separate between a mother and her daughter. There's a lot of separate, and it feels real sad. But there's things occurring. A line is being drawn. And parts, though they might love each other, they're not assembled. They're piles. See, I know what an assembly is. I've been a builder all my life. I know if I dump a bunch of building materials in a lady's driveway, I can't collect for the house. It's not assembled, You can't give your kid a box of bike parts and say, Merry Christmas. It's not a bike. It's not assembled. Well, we don't have a people yet. We have small assemblies like business over here, but they're very, very small. It's not a macro assembly. The most assemblies that we have are actually businesses, but they're assembled wrong. They're assembled wrong right now. And what's happening is when this heavy-handed controlled government, that now it's a world government, very big, okay? The weight will be enormous. The weight of the laws and, oh my gosh, it'll be as in the days of Egypt. And the people here, they'll be, let my people go. But the new Moses will be this, and it will be an assembly. And these people will start to assemble. And they will grow in size. And it doesn't matter about what country you are or what government is, local government that you have. They'll just start coming together. Very similar to today, a lot of parties and get-togethers start online. They're virtually unknown to the public. You don't see it advertised on the radio or TV or newspaper, but these large gatherings will occur because they got together based on being on the same channel online. And thousands of people will join with little to no advertisement in a mall or in a field, and there'll be great gatherings occurring in the future with that same type of thinking. There'll be people who are hearing the Spirit, and then they will move, and they will find themselves together, and they will recognize each other. They'll recognize as people, and their stories will be amazing. See, there will be geographical changes. Why did you move here? I don't know. Something said. Something. Gut, instinct. God told me. Well, what are you doing? I don't know. I'm supposed to do this. I'm following my gut, my instinct now. And it's served me well. It's a little scary. It's similar to that movie, The Stand, Stephen King's movie, where there's a couple of scenes in there where after the destruction, people were coming out of the ashes, and then they just ended up just following something, some kind of signal, and they ended up all together at this one lady's house, and then things started to assemble. Well, I think that's what's occurring. It'll start in all types of countries and all different places, very small organizations, but it will be one group of people, one unifying factor. And it will be this unifying of this Spirit-led government. A Spirit-led government that will literally unify the people. And when they're unified and they're coming together, they will be controlled because it will be God controlling them. God, remember we talked about in that one? God is the controller. He controls. We are the servant. We will listen and obey. And it is this group of servants that will come together and literally form a body. So this is why this message series, the body, well, this will be a body type of government. And so how it will be run locally will be very similar to how your own body is run locally. Like right now, my hand has authority in the area of holding small objects like this chalk. My feet don't, my eyes don't. I mean, I can see if it's there or not, but my ears don't, my nose doesn't. The person who has authority about holding this chalk is my fingers. The part of my body has authority of where my feet are. Is like, is there much pressure on the left foot or right foot? That'll be my feet. But balance is actually my inner ear. It has authority to tell me, oh, you're out of balance. My eyes don't. I can't tell I can see if things are leaning, but I don't know if I'm out of balance. You see, all parts of my body, my eyes don't control everything. My brain controls very little because it has to have input for it to, basically my brain is a manager. And so you can see the body actually has a representative form of government. This new government will be incredibly intuitive, because it will be based on a person's gift. No longer will we be looking at resumes. This ties into our education thing and everything. No longer will we be looking on what you've done in the past, your resume. We want to know, is that your DNA? Is that your part? Very similar, if I wanted to get up and sing, people would say, no, I think you need to sit down, okay? You don't have authority in that. Because DNA is your gift, and your gift is your authority. And the reason why it's your authority is because it's been authored. We talked about how your DNA is so specific and very, very, incredibly individualistic about you that, it would take 48 feet on a bookshelf to hold just your specific DNA. It's that specific. And so that was an author who put that together. This was by design. And so what happens is we're going to realize people are designed for certain things, and we need to back up and give them authority because you have it. You have authority because I believe God is the author of it. That's why. Everybody has an area of authority, and it is in your gifting. Like I don't have medical authority, but there are some people in the medical field who don't have medical authority. They just got into it because it paid well, or their mom and dad wanted them to be a doctor. They wanted a doctor in the family. There are many people in government that have no authority to lead or manage. There are a lot of people who have positions of authority that don't have authority because it wasn't authored. And so there's going to be a great shift from positioning, which is this, to giftings. And if you don't have the gift, it'll be agreed by the rest of the body. Well, let's let this person step in. We think you need to move over here. It won't be like beating you up. I think this would be your spot because we need everybody. We need them all. And so what happens is that just as it'll be very intuitive. So this will be local government. Local government will be, run by the gifts in the community. And there won't be all this fighting, and it will be well managed. It's just as how you manage your own life. I rely on my eyes to see. I give it authority. I rely on my brain to organize. I rely on my bones to hold up and structure. I rely on all parts of it. I rely on my heart to administrate the blood. And so it has authority. And so from a very early ages, we'll be looking in our children for their areas of authority, their areas where they will lead and they will govern. And so when you have a localized authority body type of government, it is all management. It is no control. But the only way you can have it if it is controlled. If it is controlled, if all these people, and they all won't to start. Very similar. Like when it comes down, there won't be all. Many people will choose to be, choose for their entitlements. But what will happen is the Daniels and the Davids, and the Joshuas and the Calebs will start hearing, the Abrahams and the Isaacs. These people will form, and they will meet in a cave like with David, and they will go, wow, I have the story of Joseph. And so these parts will be hearing, and they'll feel like lone people moving, and they will start to assemble, and they will understand this concept, and they will defer to other people in their areas. And there won't be all this bickering for positions. You see, and over time, what happens is it starts to form. This is going to be the most exciting time in history. It'll be, gosh, if you made a movie of it, people would flock to it. Because when this forms, out of the ashes of control, because remember, control kills, this body will form. Well, and it will be unstoppable. Just as a body type of government, like a business, like Erevan, it's going to be unstoppable. You're not, because the people, what government doesn't like a ruled people? They say, yes, okay, great. The government at the time did not accuse Jesus. It was the religious people that accused him. Pontius Pilate didn't accuse him. He washed his hands and said, I wouldn't do this to him. Because they're going to say, well, you're making my life easier. And so there's not going to be a fight against this. And you have to understand, when a people are hearing their Father, they will have the same authority to move as Jesus did. And it's very comforting to know that Jesus was never abducted. You don't read where he had any pain. They picked up stones to throw at him, and he was gone. You say, well, he was crucified. No, he laid his life down. He could have been out of there. He purposely did that. He allowed that. So there was no controlling. He would hear God get this incredible wisdom and say things like, well, give to Caesar what's Caesar's. He would always, the only people that got mad at him were the religious people. And our government's going to quench religious people anyway. And so it's going to be a very exciting group of people that will start forming. And they will connect. They will use the internet, but they will go beyond the internet. And their wisdom in life will come from the Spirit. So this is where we're heading. But we won't go here until we need it. You don't know what you got till it's gone. When it's gone, then people are going to start to go, okay, well, if I can't, quote, go to church, and they're going to stop me praying, well, you're not going to need to. This is going to be an amazing time. It's very, very, very exciting times to be in. And this is the future government. This is how we will be governed in the future. And this group of people will get larger and larger and larger. And yes, there will come a point in time where it will appear to take over. And so what will happen is that people will join it very fast. And like I said, it will happen very exponentially. And so this body government will actually be a very freeing thing for people. You won't be controlled. It will be this. It will be a people understanding the concept, and it will hold people together. And when somebody tries to buck it, well, they'll get kicked out as you would kick out a sneeze or cut out cancer. People go, no, we don't want that. And those people get kicked out, and they'll want to come back in. And I think just the peer pressure to join will be phenomenal. And so after we go through a time of separating and moving, and I think this is the time we're in right now. A lot of people are contemplating geographical changes and relationship changes. And there's a lot of disassembling. But when this occurs, that's exciting. Especially me being a builder, I see this, and I've always wondered how is it going to come together? How will it come together when people don't need it to? But when you have enough of this pressure, when it gets like this, and it's happening very quick here in the U.S., and I hate to see that happening, but it's where we're going because it's representing the people. It's not the government, It's not. It doesn't even matter if the R or D next to your name, whoever wins. It doesn't matter right now because they're going to represent. They'll just, be, what the people are desiring and needing for control. And so what is the ultimate, what is this whole situation coming up to? I believe in the end that God will, as we talked about early on, with Adam and Eve, okay, that was a true theocracy at that time. And a true theocracy is a one God government. And just as it happened in that day, and Jesus was ruled by a theocracy. It was his father ruled him. That was a theocracy. Well, I believe in the days ahead that we will have a true theocracy on this planet, on this earth. And it is happening before our eyes. And it is a very, very exciting time to be alive and to witness this great shift, this great change. So in closing, there was I think it was in 2005, there was a great rain that occurred. It was very unusual. It happened in Death Valley. It was a great, great rain. And they call it Death Valley because they believe nothing grows there. It's just mainly sand. But it was an unusual. It wasn't just a sprinkle. It was a couple of inches. And when the rain hit that, they were amazed to find out that within a short period of time, that valley was alive with flowers. It was just alive. It was thousands. Because all those years, there was these latent seeds underneath that had never been watered. And so what was there came out. And all it needed was a good rain for people to find out what they previously thought wasn't there. Well, what we're finding out now is what is in the hearts and minds of people. What's under the surface? And if under the surface, when given the opportunity, you choose immoral, well, that's what you have. Because we're going to the core. We're going to the inside now. Enough of this external. A man convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. So many people are convinced against their will to be a certain way, act a certain way. But when given freedom, we find out what we end up with. And so what's happened is over the years, we found out that we basically are a people that are not internally governed. And even religion doesn't govern you. That's an external government. What's on the inside? What's under the surface? We see it in somebody who wins the lottery. They say, I'll never be, and they end up becoming very different people than they were before they won the lottery. And we see it when somebody wins or becomes famous. They end up being a shell of the person they used to be, or at least that they looked at it, because it rained on them. Well, what's going to happen in the end days is the true hearts and minds of people are going to be tested. And it is there where the change has to occur. It is on the inside. It is below the surface that you have to be governed. You have to be internally governed. There is no other way. No other way. And unless you're internally governed, unless, you will have to be externally governed. Unless you have made a choice in an internal, spirit-led life, You will be this, and this will kill. And this will be life. This will be great life. And in the days ahead, we will see through pressure, when things are put under pressure, you see what's in there. And this great separation of those who are truly led by God, who pick up the signal, who have their signals being picked up, they will be the ones that prosper and grow like those flowers. And they will be governed. And they won't need a king. And we'll understand why Jesus didn't want to set up a king, because he knew it wouldn't do anything. And we'll talk about more of that in our next one. Thank you.